A very good evening to you and welcome to Spotlight. And on Spotlight today, we will be touching on a very crucial topic, and this is the most talked about topic. It's on essential goods, and we have with us the Executive Director of the Consumer Affairs Authority, Mr. Tushan Gunawardena. Very good evening to you.
Very good evening, Sharika.
We are honored to have you here with us this evening,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gunawardena.
Thank you. I'm glad we are here at Rupavahini.
And today we'll be touching on, which is a crucial topic, essential goods, and about the prices, and everyone's talking about a shortage and are worried about it too at the same time. So first and foremost, let's talk about what the authority is currently doing.
We are currently looking at, we are conducting island-wide operations to check for hoarding of essential goods, meaning that whatever that is listed as an essential item, we are going behind importers who are hoarding unnecessarily, because that creates a panic and people will start buying things just because there is a shortage. So we have as you know, His Excellency the President recently appointed a Commissioner General for Essential Services. So we actually work with the Commissioner General as well in conducting these raids.
So this is a joint measure?
It is a joint measure, I would say, and we have the data. We've been working on this for a long time, so we have sufficient data to go behind errant traders, distributors who are trying to hoard. Especially you would have seen sugar recently, rice. So we want to put an end to it. The government firmly believes that hoarding should not be done. There's sufficient stocks of essential food in the country, and the panic today is because of hoarding. So from the consumer affairs point of view, we are trying to look for these storage facilities which are not registered. We will definitely get the Commissioner General's advice, and then we will possibly take that stock and distribute it through Satosa. That's the current mechanism that is in place. So I don't think there is a shortage as such, but of course there is a crunch. People also will have to understand that this is unprecedented. COVID, we are facing a pandemic, and as a result the country's economy is struggling. So at a time like this, we have to ensure, as the Consumer Affairs Authority, we need to ensure that the essential items are available freely, so that, and most importantly, at the right price. So we have to, we are trying to look at it from the consumer's point of view, and we are trying to see how best we could facilitate this process. So to that effect, I think you would have seen us going behind traders, trying to take over stocks, distribute, do all that.
And you did mention that you are working jointly in terms of finding out places where they are hoarding goods, and also to make sure that everybody receives the goods at a decent price and the price people can afford to get. So let's talk about the scarcity of goods overall. It's not just about the sugar and the rice we're talking about. Do we have any shortages? That's the question.
I believe there is. I would like to again say the same thing. It's a pandemic. People will have to understand that government alone can't solve all the problems, but of course the government has to manage the problem. So I think His Excellency the President has directed the relevant authorities to ensure that essential items especially are available and it's not hoarded. So we are trying our level best to make sure that no one does that, but the issue here is that few errant traders can create a problem in the country, and pandemic situation has not made it simpler. It has complicated many things, the way we purchase, the way we operate, with the way we go to work, transportation, everything has been impacted. So we need to find solutions for all of this. So I believe that when it comes to all the goods, you might not be able to freely go and buy stuff. Supermarkets may be closed. Maybe there's less goods, less products inside the supermarkets. The variety of products that we used to have may not be available. It is understood that we also have a crisis in the country. The economic fundamentals will play a key role in deciding how we are going to come out of this crisis situation. So I think to that effect, the Finance Minister, Honorable Basil Rajapaksa, is doing his best at this point to see how we can manage this situation. He has instructed all the government institutions to ensure that we provide the essential items mainly, but we also have to keep an eye on the other items as well. You would have seen that we've gone and done some raids in PETA. People who are selling milk powder without proper markings, without displaying manufacturers' information, we found quite a lot of stuff. So it's getting very complicated.
It's not just one thing.
It's not one thing, and we are also adapting to the situation. So we improvise, and we've now have the support of the Essential Services Commissioner General. So I think this situation will be corrected in the near future. But as I told you, the economic problems in the country has to be addressed as well at the same time.
Exactly, and I think the world is facing a crisis right now. It's not just our country, but we see a rise in cases in the country, and then we have lockdowns and people are indoors and the work has reduced. So since you said that it's not just about the items we are discussing, it's not just about rice and not about sugar, but there are so many other things you have to work on and find out whether the quality is good enough and the prices or how it's packed and all that matters. So tell us about how this COVID situation is impacting the system of the Consumer Affairs Authority. You've been working accordingly to a specific system. So how has this pandemic changed everything?
Sharifa, worldwide there is a big difference. Many changes had to be done in managing the post-COVID situation. So you would have seen the rise of delivery companies. This is something new. You would have seen online sales rising suddenly.
There was a time people were very scared to use their credit cards, or now at least input their details. But now it's important.
Changed because it's going to be part and parcel of our daily life. So I believe that technology will come in, and we also have to adapt. So from the Consumer Affairs Authority side, we also have to change the way we operate. Even now we are partially closed due to COVID, but we operate from every district. So yes, to that effect, we need to change with the post-COVID situation, but we will not be able to definitively tell you how it's going to be after a couple of months. So maybe the system might change, maybe we will have to reorganize the way we operate, which we currently do, and we will have to reorganize how we approach certain problems. So I think to that effect we are currently moving on the right direction.
And Mr. Gunawardena, you mentioned that right now, currently, you're trying to find out where the errant traders have hoarded up essential goods like sugar and rice. So once you find all that, how will this be distributed to the public?
It will be distributed through Satosa. Actually, we don't take over the stock. The Essential Services Commissioner General takes over the stock,
right,
and that stock is then distributed via the Satosa outlets. So that's the current mechanism. So I think in the future they also may use the cooperative system to deliver some of the goods which are taken into the custody of the Commissioner General. Well, we will not be able to do this forever. We will have to come up with systems. The government may have to change certain policies going forward because it's a pandemic. I mean, we will have a whole new experience in the coming months on how we are going to deal with this. So how we deal with it today during the pandemic will decide how we are going to come out of this. So I think that is important right now.
Is anything currently being done with regards to this?
Yes, currently the post-pandemic management, the entire process is being redrawn, including our Consumer Affairs Authority Act. So, which means that there will be a lot of changes in time to come.
And price is also another concern when it comes to essential goods. It's not just about having stocks, but about affordability, and will our people be able to buy those goods is another question. So how does the government intend to settle prices with the current inflation we have?
Unfortunately, regulation alone cannot control the prices. We are an open economy. We are a democratic country, we are an open economy, and in an open economy too much of price controls will have adverse impacts going forward, especially because price controls generally in an open market does not work. We've seen that happening. We've seen what happened to gas, we've seen what happened to rice, we have previously seen, we've tried putting a price cap for salmon, sugar. It doesn't essentially work. So we have to allow the supply and demand to take over these conditions, so that is the deciding factor. It's nothing else. So we are just right now, we are scratching the tip of the iceberg. The problem is way bigger than what we see today. The economy has to be fixed. So I believe that unless certain economic policies are changed, I mean, it's a good opportunity right now even for the government to change the economic policies because COVID has changed everything. Why not the economy?
There's a new norm now.
New norm, new order. So it's time, it's opportune time actually to have the fundamentals. At least they should address some of the fundamental flaws that are in the current system. So I think to that effect the government, I'm sure, is working on it. I just sincerely hope that these changes will happen, otherwise it's going to be problematic in the future.
What about the importation of essential goods?
It also has impact with the foreign exchange. I mean, you would have seen on latest reports, I saw also on social media as well as the general media, that it's a known fact that the foreign reserves are low in the country. So obviously affordability, the rupee going down, dollar appreciating, these all will have issues in actually importing
essential
products.
goods and products.
Essential goods, I think, will be imported. I think government will give priority for that, but general goods, you would have seen the government stopped all import of vehicles. For the last 1 year and 3 months, there were not a single, I don't think there was any imports. So yes, we all have to understand one thing, and that is these are unprecedented times. We need to ensure that everyone collectively addresses the problem. We all need to pitch in. It's not only the government, it's the responsibility of all citizens to ensure that whoever who's governing everyone should give a hand to move forward and put the country on the right track.
What should they do?
They should help.
Exactly.
Forget all the party differences and help and collaboratively come out of this. Otherwise, we are going to be on two sides, and all Sri Lankans will suffer.
And you mentioned that government might consider about the importation of essential goods. What about even medicine is inclusive, is it?
Yeah, medicine will have priority for sure. I'm sure. I haven't heard any scarcity of medicines as such, but of course there may be here and there shortages, but I think that has been the case anyway. It's nothing new, right? But pandemic situation would have made certain drugs inaccessible. I mean, there might be a worldwide crisis. Some drugs are not available, there's a scarcity worldwide. So what can Sri Lanka do? So we need to understand the times that we are in, and then of course, once we understand the situation and once the people know what is right and the truth, I think it's easy to manage the situation, especially post-COVID.
Exactly, and there are so many, I think, students out there as well waiting for opportunities to work at organizations, institutions, and looking at the current situation. What does it look like once we open up? What's it going to be like for us, and how should we act?
Honestly, Sharifa, I wouldn't know, because we will have to, now we know that the vaccination will last approximately a year possibly, but no one can confirm that. So maybe there will be a third shot that has to be given. So it's as we go, we need to build the post-COVID situation. So how this will get reorganized, we currently would not know. But of course, certain things will be predicted. We will work on a predictive model, but most of it will be something new. So how we go and purchase stuff in the future may change forever. You never know. So food chains will be reorganized. Gone are the dependencies where we depend on rice for Thailand. Thailand will have its own problems now. So we will have to have mechanisms to grow our own food. Right? So things will change, but as long as people understand what is actually happening, I believe the government also should tell the people what they're doing, plus what the actions that they have taken to circumvent this problem. Yes, because I think when people are aware, they will cooperate.
Exactly.
Most of it, misinformation is hampering the efforts that are currently in place. Even if the government is trying to resolve certain problems, misinformation will hamper that as well. So we need to have clear messages, especially from the government, to ensure that people are aware. I mean, you just asked whether there is a scarcity of essential goods. I believe there's enough and more in the country. We have our own stocks, but yes, artificially for profiteering and racketeering, people may do certain things. So we have to move forward from that point.
Everyone's trying to make a living.
Exactly, but we can't allow errant traders to profit during a pandemic.
Exactly.
I mean, you can have a profit, but unreasonable profits cannot be tolerated.
Because these are goods people count on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And I think looking at the situation, as you mentioned, that there's enough and we don't have to panic, because panic buying, actually we end up buying more than what we really need, and then there's a lot of other people who would struggle without.
That's also a form of hoarding, right? So we buy things which we don't need, just to be on the safe side. We buy so many things.
So indirectly, we hoard too.
We hoard too. So
it's not just the errant traders.
No, not the errant traders. When we see a queue in front of a supermarket, people think, okay, now there's a shortage of goods.
It happens with fuel.
So yeah, one photo on social media could trigger a chain of events. So we need to be mindful. We need to be intelligent. We need to be informed. People have to be informed, more informed of the current situation. So I think to that effect, the government also should make an extra effort to disclose, show the positivities in the current system.
We've come towards the latter part of the program as well, Mr. Gunawardena. So we discussed about a lot of other things like essential goods and distribution, and about hoarding, and how we also need to play our part well in terms of having a better economy in the future to come. So I guess the travel restrictions will be lifted very soon. So what would your message be to the general public out there? How should they act? How should they? We spoke half of what they should be doing, I think, but what would be your final message to them?
In my capacity, I think I'm not qualified enough to give a message to the public, but I think if you look at His Excellency's plan, I think the proper management of this current situation, the President is trying his level best to keep the COVID situation under tabs, plus to look at how to manage the country and to keep the economy running. I think walking that fine line is a huge task. I'm sure it's a very difficult task, being the president of this country. So he has to listen to the health authorities, the economists, so on and so forth. So ultimately the decision is taken by him. So I think we all have to support His Excellency the President to move forward and take the country forward from this difficult situation that we are in currently.
And as you mentioned, I think social media plays a massive role in encouraging people to work together or, separate. So I think people out there need to also work on that in terms of spreading positive energy to the rest on social media.
Yes, Sharif. As I told you, we need to work as Sri Lankans. There are no parties and no one will win this pandemic by themselves. It is us who will take the entire country through. So I believe the opposition, the government, all Sri Lankans have to come together, and then we need to take ourselves out of this. If we don't, we'll be on two sides and we'll be blaming each other. So this blame game has to stop, and people have to come together. I think that's the message that we need to carry to all Sri Lankans.
To the whole general public who are tuned in right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Tushan Gunawardena, for speaking to us on Spotlight.
Thank you, Sharika.
And we've had Mr. Tushan Gunawardena, Executive Director of the Consumer Affairs Authority, speaking to us about the current situation and about the essential goods. And since everyone's talking about a scarcity of goods, and we discussed about hoarding and how we as a citizen also should reconsider when we try to hoard our goods at home as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a pleasant night.